Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Jason,
We are ready to explore some more fascinating topics today.
always ready to dive in.
Perfect. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of generative AI.
Sounds exciting.
It is, but it's also a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, there's so much potential there, but also some serious risks to consider. And that's exactly what we're going to be focusing on today.
Yeah, the risks are definitely something we can't ignore.
Absolutely. And to guide our deep dive today, we're going to be looking at this really comprehensive report from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, on their AI risk management framework. And they've really gone in depth on this report, specifically focusing on the risks associated with generative AI, which, it's already being used in so many ways.
It really is amazing how quickly this technology is evolving.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it. We've got AI writing code, creating art, even mimicking voices. It's crazy.
I know. It's pretty mind-blowing. But it also kind of makes you wonder what happens when this powerful technology, takes a wrong turn.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? What are the potential downsides?
Exactly. And that's where this NIST report comes in. They've identified a whole range of potential risks.
Some of them are probably pretty surprising.
They are. Did you know that one area NIST highlights is the potential for generative AI to be used to access dangerous information about CBRN, which stands for chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear weapons.
Whoa, really? That's kind of scary.
And I mean, we're not talking about AI launching a nuclear attack or anything,
No, of course not.
but more about AI becoming a tool for people who want to cause harm.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So, a lot of this CBRN information, as they call it, it's already out there, scattered across all sorts of research papers and reports.
Yeah, you can find pretty much anything online these days.
Exactly. But the concern is that a powerful AI could analyze and synthesize all that information in a way that makes it way more accessible.
Oh, I see. So it's like giving someone with, malicious intent a shortcut to creating a weapon of mass destruction.
Exactly. And that's just one of the risks NIST has identified.
Wow. Okay. So what else are they worried about?
Well, another big concern is something they call confabulation. Basically, it means AI can confidently present false information as if it were true.
Oh, so like AI making stuff up?
Pretty much. You might have heard it called hallucinations, too. It's kind of like when my friend swears he remembers this episode of a TV show that never actually happened.
Oh, yeah. I get it.
But with AI, it's much harder to spot the deception. Imagine an AI writing a history paper and confidently stating that, oh, I don't know, the moon landing was faked.
And then even backing it up with fake sources and citations.
Exactly.
That would be pretty convincing if you didn't know any better.
Right, so it's a recipe for disaster if people start relying on AI for, important decisions or to educate themselves on certain topics. Critical thinking, fact-checking, those things are more important than ever now. And it's not just about spreading false information. It can also be used to create content that's, explicitly dangerous, violent, or hateful. Even with safeguards in place, NIST warns that AI can sometimes be manipulated to bypass those restrictions. Think of it like someone jailbreaking.
Jailbreaking?
Yeah, like on a phone or something. They're basically tricking the AI into generating content that it's not supposed to.
Oh, wow. That's scary.
Right. And it's not just text we're talking about. Generative AI can also create incredibly realistic images and videos.
Oh, right. Like that fake image of the explosion at the Pentagon that really caused a stir.
Exactly. That was a powerful example of how AI-generated content can have real-world consequences, even if it's not intended to cause harm.
It's a good reminder that we need to be cautious about what we see and share online, especially with AI getting more sophisticated.
Totally. And another issue is the potential for AI to be used to create content that's harmful, even if it's not, overtly violent or hateful.
If an AI is trained on a data set of news articles that mainly features male CEOs, then it might generate text that reinforces the stereotype that leadership is a male-dominated thing.
Right, exactly. It's like the AI is learning all the wrong lessons from the data it's given. And that's a huge problem because AI is being used more and more to make decisions that affect our lives.
It's a bit unsettling when you think about it like that.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just about overt bias either. There's also the risk of what they call model collapse.
Model collapse? What's that?
It's where AI outputs become overly homogeneous. It's lacking diversity and creativity.
So it's like the AI is trapping us in an echo chamber of its own making.
Yeah, pretty much. Instead of expanding our horizons, AI could actually end up narrowing them.
That is not good at all.
And then, of course, there's the whole issue of data privacy. I mean, these generative AI systems need massive amounts of data to learn.
Oh, yeah, tons of it. Billions of pieces of text and images, all that stuff.
Exactly. And a lot of it's scraped from the internet.
Yeah. Right, and that raises a lot of questions about, how our data is being used and if it's being used responsibly. Like, could my personal information be hidden somewhere in an AI's training data?
It's a valid concern, and one that NIST has highlighted. I mean, there's a real risk of AI leaking this information, either accidentally or through some kind of malicious attack.
So it's not just about what we intentionally share online. Our data could be swept up in AI training without our knowledge or consent.
That's the worry. And it gets even creepier.
Creepier? How?
Generative AI might be able to correctly guess sensitive details about you that weren't directly provided. It's all about patterns and inferences.
So the AI can just connect the dots and figure stuff out?
Pretty much. It can analyze massive data sets and connect seemingly unrelated pieces of information to create a surprisingly accurate picture of an individual.
Okay. Now that is both fascinating and a little bit freaky.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think twice about your digital footprint, doesn't it?
It does. So we've talked about AI being used to access dangerous information, spread misinformation, amplify biases, and potentially violate our privacy. What else is NIST concerned about?
Well, they also bring up the environmental impact of generative AI. I mean, training these models takes a lot of energy.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Something about a huge carbon footprint.
Exactly. Training a single AI can have a carbon footprint equal to, like, hundreds of cross-country flights. Think about all the energy needed to power those servers and data centers.
Wow, that's a lot. It seems like we need to find ways to make AI development more sustainable.
Absolutely. There's a lot of research going on in that area, trying to come up with more energy-efficient algorithms and hardware.
It's definitely something we need to be mindful of if we want to use AI responsibly.
For sure. Now, another important area that NIST focuses on is the way we interact with AI, what they call human-AI configuration.
Okay, that sounds interesting. What exactly does that mean?
It's all about how we set up our relationship with AI and the risks that can come with that. One concern is the tendency to, anthropomorphize AI.
Anthropomorphize?
Yeah, basically treating it like a human with feelings and intentions, like we're giving it human qualities.
Oh, I see. So instead of seeing it as a tool, we might start forming emotional attachments to it.
Exactly. And that can lead to problems like over-reliance or what they call automation bias. That's when we blindly trust the AI's output without questioning it.
We can't just assume the AI is always right.
And there's also the risk of, becoming emotionally dependent on AI companions, which can have negative psychological effects, I imagine.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's important to remember that AI is not a replacement for human connection.
Absolutely. We need to be mindful of the boundaries. And that brings us to another concern NIST raises, the impact of generative AI on information integrity.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, we already live in a world with so much misinformation and disinformation flying around.
It's hard to know what to believe sometimes.
I know, right? And with AI, things could get even worse. It makes it much easier to create and spread fake news, especially with those realistic deepfakes.
Oh yeah, deepfakes are a huge problem. It's getting harder and harder to tell what's real.
And then there's the confabulation issue we talked about, where AI might unintentionally generate false information.
Right. It's not always intentional, but the impact can be just as harmful.
Exactly. So we need to be extra careful about what we consume and share online.
No doubt. Critical thinking and media literacy are more important than ever.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about information security. NIST flags this as another major risk area.
Information security. What do they mean by that?
Well, it's kind of a two-pronged thing. On the one hand, generative AI can be used to enhance cybersecurity attacks.
Whoa, like how?
Well, imagine AI helping hackers find and exploit vulnerabilities in systems, making it much easier to launch really sophisticated attacks.
So we're not just dealing with human hackers anymore. We're dealing with AI-powered hackers.
That's the scary part. And then on the flip side, AI systems themselves are also vulnerable to attacks.
Wait, so AI can be hacked? I didn't think about that.
Yeah, they're not invincible. There are techniques like what they call prompt injection.
Prompt injection.
Yeah, where attackers inject malicious prompts into AI systems to make them do things they're not supposed to. It's kind of like tricking the AI into misbehaving.
So you're basically manipulating the AI by giving it the wrong instructions.
Exactly. And then there's also data poisoning, where the data that the AI learns from is corrupted.
Oh, that's sneaky. So it's like messing with the AI's brain, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty devious. It can really compromise the performance and even the safety of AI systems.
Wow. It seems like we're in a whole new world of cybersecurity.
We are. And that means we need new ways to protect ourselves and our systems.
A whole new game with new rules.
And let's not forget about the impact on intellectual property. I mean, if AI can create original content, who owns the copyright?
Yeah, that's a good question. The lines are definitely getting blurry there.
Imagine an AI generating a song that sounds exactly like a copyrighted work. Is that infringement?
Yeah, it's only going to get more complex as AI keeps evolving. And it's not just music either. AI can generate all sorts of content, text, artwork, code, you name it. So the question of ownership is a tricky one. We might need some new frameworks to address this.
I think so. And then finally, NIST talks about the risks associated with what they call the value chain of generative AI.
The value chain. What's that all about?
Think of it like a complex supply chain. I mean, generative AI systems often rely on third-party data, software, and even other AI models.
Okay, I'm following.
But the problem is that if one link in this chain is weak, the whole system can be compromised.
Oh, like a domino effect.
Exactly. Say, for example, a data set used to train an AI is poorly vetted or contains malicious code.
Right, that could lead to all sorts of problems down the line.
And it can also be difficult to track down the source of the problem and hold the responsible parties accountable.
So it's like a tangled web of interconnected systems.
Kind of. And that makes it even harder to manage the risks. Well, the good news is that NIST doesn't just highlight the risks, they also provide some guidance on how to manage them.
Oh, good, because I was starting to get a bit pessimistic there.
I know, it can be overwhelming. But there are things we can do, and that's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
So let's talk solutions. Where do we even start with managing all these risks?
Well, NIST emphasizes that it all starts with good governance. You know, setting clear rules and guidelines for developing and using these generative AI systems.
Okay, that makes sense. So, like, establishing a set of ground rules right from the get-go.
Exactly. And a big part of that is being transparent about how the AI is being used, especially when it comes to data privacy and potential bias.
Transparency is huge, especially with AI, I think. People need to know what's going on behind the scenes.
Absolutely. NIST talks about providing an AI ingredients list, so to speak. Like, what data was used to train it? What are its limitations?
It's like a nutrition label for AI.
Exactly. And that helps build trust, both with the people using the AI and with the public as a whole. And another crucial part of governance that NIST stresses is incident disclosure.
Incident disclosure, you mean like if something goes wrong?
Exactly. It's about having a plan in place for when AI systems misbehave, like if they generate harmful content or make a biased decision. How do you address it?
So it's like a safety protocol, just in case.
Yep. It's about planning for the unexpected. Things are bound to go wrong at some point, and it's important to be prepared.
Makes sense. Better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. And it's not just about fixing the immediate problem either. It's also about learning from these incidents and updating policies to prevent similar issues in the future.
So it's a continuous improvement process?
Exactly. Now, let's move on to another key recommendation from NIST, which is pre-deployment testing.
Okay, so this is about testing the AI thoroughly before releasing it into the wild.
Precisely. We can't just assume that an AI system will work as intended. We need to put it through its paces and make sure it can handle a wide range of scenarios.
I guess that makes sense. Like, you wouldn't just launch a new car without testing it first, right?
Exactly. You want to make sure it's safe and reliable before letting people drive it. And when it comes to AI testing, you also need to consider potential misuse cases.
Oh, interesting. So you're not just testing what the AI is supposed to do, but also how it could be abused or exploited?
Exactly. It's about thinking like the bad guys and trying to find those vulnerabilities before they do. And NIST also recommends involving a diverse group of testers in this process.
Are diverse in what way?
Well, you want to include people with different areas of expertise, different backgrounds, different perspectives.
I can see why that's important. You want to make sure the AI is being evaluated from all angles.
Right. And NIST takes this idea of feedback even further with their recommendation for what they call structured public feedback. It's about getting input from a much wider range of people, not just the developers and engineers.
So like everyday users and people from different fields?
Exactly. It's about getting a more comprehensive understanding of how an AI system might impact the real world and how people might interact with it in ways we haven't even anticipated.
That's pretty cool. So how do they suggest getting this feedback?
Well, they recommend using a variety of methods like focus groups, surveys, and even something called AI red teaming.
AI red teaming? That sounds intense. What is that?
It's basically where you have people intentionally try to break the AI to find its weaknesses and vulnerabilities.
So you're basically pitting human ingenuity against artificial intelligence. That's awesome.
It is kind of awesome, and it can be incredibly valuable. It helps identify potential biases, security flaws, or any other unintended consequences that might not be apparent in traditional testing.
It's like a stress test for the AI.
Now, another key recommendation from NIST is content provenance.
Content provenance. That's a new one. What's that all about?
It's about tracking the origins of AI-generated content. Basically, being able to verify its authenticity. Think of it like a digital fingerprint or watermark.
So in a world where AI can create all sorts of fake content, this helps us know what's real and what's not.
Exactly. It can help address issues like misinformation, copyright infringement, and even impersonation.
Makes sense. So content provenance helps us trace the content back to its source. It's like having a breadcrumb trail.
And that ties into incident disclosure, which we talked about earlier. If something goes wrong with AI-generated content, being able to trace it back to its source is crucial for understanding what happened and preventing it from happening again.
It's all about accountability, right? Knowing where things came from and who's responsible.
Precisely. And speaking of incident disclosure, NIST emphasizes the importance of having really clear procedures in place for reporting and addressing AI-related incidents.
No sweeping things under the rug. So transparency is key here too, right?
Absolutely. If an AI system screws up, whether it's making a discriminatory decision or violating someone's privacy, there needs to be a clear protocol for dealing with it openly and responsibly. And NIST highlights the importance of learning from these mistakes and making sure that we're continuously improving the way we develop and use AI.
So it's not just about punishing mistakes, it's about using them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Right. And that leads us to a really important point that NIST makes. It's not just about technical solutions. It's about fostering a culture of responsibility within organizations and the AI industry as a whole.
That's interesting. So it's about going beyond just ticking the boxes and following the rules. It's about creating an environment where ethical considerations are baked into the entire AI development process.
Exactly. It's about asking those tough questions at every stage. Like, what could go wrong? How could this be misused? What are the potential unintended consequences?
Those are important questions to be asking. And it sounds like NIST is encouraging a more proactive approach to AI risk management.
They are. It's about anticipating problems and finding solutions before the AI is released into the world.
That's smart. It's like preventative medicine for AI.
Okay, so we've talked about governance, pre-deployment testing, structured public feedback, content provenance, and incident disclosure. Those are all really important recommendations from NIST. But they've also got some more specific advice on managing different types of risks.
Oh, like what?
Well, for example, when it comes to AI bias, they suggest a number of things. Remember, AI bias is a big concern because it can lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
Yeah, we've already seen examples of that happening with things like facial recognition and hiring algorithms.
Exactly. And one of the key recommendations from NIST is to be really careful about the data used to train these AI systems. We need to make sure that it's representative of diverse populations and that it doesn't perpetuate existing biases.
So it's like making sure that the AI is getting a well-rounded education, learning from a variety of sources.
Exactly. And beyond that, NIST also suggests using techniques like what they call fairness-aware and machine learning.
Fairness-aware machine learning. What's that?
It's where algorithms are specifically designed to detect and mitigate bias. It's like building a bias detection system right into the AI. Now, when it comes to the risk of AI being used to generate harmful content, NIST recommends a multi-layered approach. Well, it starts with content filters. Think of these as the first line of defense, blocking or flagging inappropriate material before it can spread.
So, kind of like a spam filter, but for harmful AI-generated content.
Exactly. But content filters aren't perfect, so NIST also recommends having human moderators review flagged content, especially in sensitive areas like child safety.
So it's a combination of AI and human intelligence working together.
And another important part of this approach is educating users about the potential for AI-generated fakes. Giving them the tools to critically evaluate the content they encounter online.
That's so important. We need to help people become more savvy, digital citizens.
Absolutely. And then to address those risks associated with the AI value chain. Remember, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, that whole domino effect thing where one weak link can bring down the whole system.
Exactly. Well, NIST recommends establishing clear guidelines and standards for third-party vendors. Making sure they're held accountable for the quality and safety of their products and services.
So it's about raising the bar for everyone involved in the AI supply chain.
Right. And NIST also suggests using auditing to monitor the performance of these AI systems even after they've been deployed.
So it's not just a one-time inspection. It's about ongoing monitoring and evaluation.
Exactly. It's about making sure that AI systems are performing as intended and that any potential issues are addressed quickly. So we've got a lot to consider here. Governance, testing, feedback, provenance, incident disclosure, and all these specific recommendations for mitigating different types of risks. It seems like NIST is advocating for a pretty comprehensive approach to AI risk management. It's about thinking about these issues holistically and addressing them at every level, every stage of the AI life cycle.
And it's not just about technology, it's about culture too. It's about fostering a sense of responsibility and accountability throughout the entire AI ecosystem.
I think that's one of the most important takeaways from this report. It's not just about finding technical solutions. It's about making sure that AI is developed and used in a way that aligns with our values and that benefits society as a whole.
It's a human-centered approach to AI.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap things up, I wanted to get your thoughts on one thing that really stood out to me from this report.
Sure. What is it?
Well, NIST emphasizes the importance of resilience when it comes to AI systems.
Resilience. What do they mean by that?
It means designing AI systems that can withstand unexpected challenges, like adversarial attacks or changes in the data they're processing.
Oh, I see. So it's about making sure the AI doesn't fall apart when things get tough.
Exactly. A resilient AI system can adapt and keep functioning even in the face of adversity. And it also means having backup plans in place. So if an AI system does fail, there's a way to recover gracefully without causing too much disruption.
That makes sense.
And NIST provides some guidance on how to make AI systems more resilient. For example, they recommend using techniques like redundancy.
Redundancy?
Yeah, it's basically where you have multiple components that can perform the same function. So if one fails, the others can take over. Like having a backup generator for your house in case the power goes out.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So if one part of the AI system goes down, there's a fallback option.
And another important aspect of resilience is using diverse training data. The more varied the data that an AI system is trained on, the less likely it is to be thrown off by unexpected inputs. And lastly, NIST emphasizes the importance of designing AI systems that can learn and adapt over time.
That's a cool way to think about it. It's like AI is constantly evolving and improving.
Exactly. And as AI systems encounter new challenges, they can adjust their responses and become more robust and resilient. It's like AI going through its own version of boot camp, coming out stronger and more adaptable. And one final point I wanted to mention is NIST's emphasis on collaboration. They stress the need for different stakeholders, governments, companies, researchers, and the public to work together to address these challenges.
I think that's really important. This isn't something that any one group can solve on its own. We need to pool our resources and expertise.
Absolutely. It's about bringing together different perspectives, different areas of expertise, and different voices to create a more holistic approach to AI risk management.
It's a team effort for sure. So, what are your overall thoughts on the NIST report?
Well, I think it's a really valuable resource. They've done a great job of outlining the key risks associated with generative AI and providing some really practical guidance on how to manage them.
I agree. It's definitely a must-read for anyone who's working with or even just thinking about using generative AI. It's a reminder that we need to be thoughtful and responsible in how we develop and use this powerful technology.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good place to wrap things up for this part of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much more to explore.
I'm looking forward to diving deeper into some of these topics in the next part of our discussion.
Me too. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of generative AI and risk management. We hope you learned something new and that you'll continue to follow this important conversation.